Hello, Final Fantasy fans. I'm Jackie Fox. Today we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, which just launched a couple of days ago. At the point that I am recording this video, I've been playing for about 4 days since the launch day, and I don't really have a lot of context for my progress, but I feel like I'm doing pretty good. I feel like my pace has been pretty good, and even though I've run out of energy restores once, it doesn't feel like I'm being heavily gated in many ways. In that there's always a lot of things that I need. This is a new account. I started with nothing, so there's a lot of things that I will need. But I've also been able to get a lot of cool things, and I've been able to equip out my characters in a cool way. So let's kind of take a look through my account and see where I've gotten over the last couple of days. Pick up, okay, 5th day. It's my 5th day play. Time flies, doesn't it? And man, that is a lot of crystals. So I'm thinking maybe I might want to pull on this new banner, but first I need to pick my wish list, and this is a really neat feature here. You can pick 5 weapons that will be featured alongside the banner weapons, which will also be featured, right? So you'll have a better chance of pulling weapons for the characters that you particularly want, because in this game you start with all of the characters right away, all of them. Because they're going to be required for story, and so far we only have the characters that are required for the first parts of each of these stories. So for Final Fantasy VII, that's going to include all of the characters that you see on screen at the moment, which were all of the characters that were in one way or another available during Remake, even though the retelling that we're doing here is not Remake, it is a retelling of Final Fantasy VII, the original. So looking at this, I'm just picking out kind of, at this point, weapons that I already have that I want to build up stronger, that I want to pull more copies of the rares. Because like most gachas, this is a weapon gacha, unlike other games that are character gachas. For this, you're going for weapons and costumes, and everything is skinnable, so this is very much your Final Fantasy VII dress-up collectibles game, where you have all the characters from the beginning. The whole stamp sheet system, this is the pity system, and I did have to go through 2 pages of this on the last banner in order to get everything, but I did also get everything on the last banner. The last banner was quite good. I am really liking this skill though. I think the thunder resistance debuff on this could be really powerful in boss fights with Cloud, and if you have Masamune, which is last week's weapon. So really strong. Also the whole lifeguard setup, which looks like what was her name from Final Fantasy 15, the mechanic chick. That's what this looks like to me, more so than like a swimsuit or anything. But I love her 7th Heaven hat. It's pretty. This whole outfit though makes her more of a healer, and then this is like just lightning DPS equipment. And then this is kind of like Barrett Iron Man, I think. So it's a lot of options, and you can see from the outfits and from the weapons that often these kind of change a character's capabilities. So what weapons they have equipped, what outfits they have equipped, those are going to be really impactful about like how they play and how what their role in battle is. And because of limit breaks, because of the some portions of each character that is unique to them, because of base stats and all those other things, Different characters are going to be perhaps better at different roles, but in keeping with Final Fantasy tradition, so much of what your character is determined by what they have equipped, their materia, their weapons, etc. So it makes for a really interesting concept for a weapons gacha. There are a lot of types of solo content already. One of my favorites is the character quests. And this is because these are, and it looks like there's going to be more of these, but these are so far filling in spaces that weren't really fleshed out very well in the original games, in the original collaboration. This is new ground, it seems, that this game is forging and helping us to understand better these characters that we have known for so long, which is just great. Like, if this weren't bringing something new to the table in terms of story, I don't think that would be great. There's also a dungeon system, but what you're probably more familiar with, and the thing that I was excited about, is the ability to play through the games of the collaboration and have all of them in an abbreviated state here. And when I say an abbreviated state, we're definitely getting like an abridged version of the story, but also probably a lot of this reminds me of FFBE in terms of, and you can even see that there are exploration missions, there's story missions which often have dialogue choices, which can be pretty impactful. I've really been a fan of those, as I'll show you in another video when I give Marlene the flower that Aerith gave me at the beginning of the game, which is only an option here, and it's fantastic. As you can see, also, you can synthesize your own materia, so that's not necessarily a gacha item. That's something you're going to be able to build up for yourself. And once we see combat, you'll start to understand how the gacha elements are going to play into how combat works. But for right now, we're just taking a bit of a tour, and I'm, well, since I'm logging in for the day, I need to set up my materias. And I think 3 stars is probably the best that I've gotten out of here, so I'm kind of re-rolling things until I get 3 stars. This is the system for kind of building up character stats, also leveling up their limit breaks, everything that's more unique to them. And this reminds me kind of heavily of the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X in a way, except that it's not like one thing that's interconnected for everyone. Maybe more of, they've been doing like just stat trees like this for a long time. There's a lot of games that it would remind one of. So let's look at some parties and see what this, what kind of this part of the underpinning of the game is like. And for some reason, Barrett's armor is just glitching out here. So you can see that, you have a variety of characters, different types of equipment, 3 materia that each can equip 2 weapons, a primary weapon and a backup weapon. They will be able to use the skills from both. Every weapon has its own skill that it imbues a character with. So Thunderstrike here, which I think is funny, this came out on Lightning Olaya week. So with both War of the Visions and with Ever Crisis, it was a Lightning Strike meta, because this is definitely like the most powerful skill in the game, I think at this moment. Regularly outdamages everyone's limit breaks and stuff. And especially when you combine it with the outfit, which also increases lightning damage, it's just hugely powerful. These are the characters from Final Fantasy VII, The First Soldier, and you're going to be playing through everyone's story with everyone's characters, and as you're playing through story missions, you're leveling everyone up. I don't know if it's equally, but everyone is getting a distribution. And as you'll see in here, there's a lot of like required characters often. There's a couple free slots because now you have Aerith and Red that you could use, but you don't have to. And I think I used basically Barrett, Tifa, and Cloud throughout that whole thing, just getting through it. But when you're doing like Crisis Core, of course, you're always going to be using Zack. And then when you're doing the first soldier, you're going to be using Team Glenn, which is Glenn, Matt, and Lucia. And then as you're getting into the heart of the Final Fantasy VII secondary remake, or cute remake, or whatever this is, you're going to start being able to use a lot more characters. And I would imagine that one of the ways that we're going to get new characters is by new elements of story being added. So as you probably could see earlier, I am at the end of what is currently available for Final Fantasy VII quests, and that is the point that they leave Midgar, which is exactly the same point as Final Fantasy VII Remake ends. So what I think would be interesting is if we get the Final Fantasy VII version of the events of Rebirth before Rebirth comes out, as a way to allow people to relive some of those events. The Buster Sword, by the way, the reason I'm showing this on screen is because the Buster Sword is kind of a free sword that the game gives you. It's also really good for hunting sigils. We'll talk about sigils a little bit later. It is kind of a new concept for this game and is a way of like a breaking system, which has been in a lot of Final Fantasy games from like 13 on, a way to kind of break a character, put them in a break state or something. And that's the interrupt state that you'll see later when we finally get around to looking at combat. This game has chocobos, whole chocobo ranch. You can buy chocobos, raise chocobos, it seems, all sorts of things. My best chocobo right now, his name is Chocolate, but also look at Aerith's outfit. Oh, this is cool. Got her in the red battle gear. But also, this is like a whole area that you can run around and explore. It's got people all throughout it. But you can basically access like most of the important functions through the menu, which is going to be ever present. So you don't really have to run around, but it is an option if you want to, which is kind of the ethos of this game, that like it's just a little bit more expansive than you might expect it to be, while also being, you know, abbreviated. Can't help but notice all the shadows glitching out. But here's Chocolate, my best chocobo so far. I'll get better, but Chocolate right now is the peaks. That's the one that I'm sending on expeditions, which is kind of what you do with the chocobos, I guess. And your expeditions will get better and better as you get better and better chocobos. But currently, the only thing I could afford right now is this little G chocobo, which would be equal, I guess, vanilla, I would call this one. But that would be equal to my Chocolate, and I'm just going to go for the next tier up when I can. Chocolate seems happy with that decision. But yeah, really, really loving Aerith's garb in here. So whoever's your leader, your party leader, you're going to kind of have them as your avatar as well, which is cool. Also, what a dreamy little still of Tifa. But I guess one thing that I would like to kind of explain about this game is that it reminds me of a lot of the better parts of kind of how FFBE handled the story, but also maybe more close to the, maybe even in more depth than like Final Fantasy Record Keeper, for people who remember that. Definitely more in that direction, but you know, throughout the entirety of some of these games. Okay, so I'm trying to find a team that's going to do really well here. What I'm realizing is that this last sigil that I'm not completing can only be completed by, I want to say, like gunners, or I think it's like a ranged only kind of thing. So I'm gonna need to bring Barrett with me for this fight. But let's do this nanotube fight here. So I'll be able to upgrade something, I think. Oh, cool. So this was the guy that guarded the bridge. The motor ball. And so what you're seeing here is the 5 abilities. The 2 are from the equipped weapons, and the other 3 are from the equipped materia. As you can see, I can activate abilities from materia just a little bit faster than I can my main abilities, but my main abilities are stronger. You can also see how like the elements are indicated on my abilities, but also there's kind of another thing. You'll see kind of a cross pattern on Braver right now, and you also see that cross pattern on the ability that was charging. So using the corresponding sigils will reduce that to the point where you kind of break the boss, and then you have basically like bullet time. You know, time slows down for the boss. Your ATB speeds up, so you essentially have like haste. Great time to unleash your limit breaks, and you know, I wasn't paying as much attention in this fight as I probably should have, because I was thinking about a lot of things related to just like how this video was going to play out as I was recording this. But let's see if we can finish this thing off without him. A little late. I was trying to hold out for his LB so I could chain them all together, but I probably should have unleashed that healing wind a bit sooner regardless to keep Barrett in the game. But just kidding. You think I was gonna let Barrett just die? No, we can do better than this. I'm gonna get another chance at this thing. So he's charging up his big ability, and what I'm doing here is I am slapping that down with Braver. Now, Barrett also has a Ruin skill, probably a Ruin Blow. Yep, Ruin Blow. That also has that cross pattern, or maybe the triangle pattern next to it. Either of those will lower that, and his AI will like get him towards doing that. But now that those are gone, he's going to actually focus on the range specific one, and he can take that out in about 2 hits. We can also reduce it by 1 with each of our abilities, even if they don't match. But you can see all of the damage that Lightning Strike is doing. Now let's get some LB damage in here since we're getting close to the end of this fight. I'll use Aerith's heal separate from that, since it looks like she's a bit behind us. And it looks like this Rising Fire just interrupted my Thunderstrike, which means that I'm going to have actually the ATB to heal pretty much. But I'm just going to go ahead and throw it back into damage because we're almost done. So the combat system ends up feeling like a streamlined version of more like Crisis Core. Especially if you're kind of like tapping along to it, because the auto is going to hesitate in using your ATB. So if you have something you want it to do instead of what it's doing, you have perhaps an opportunity to just kind of tap on that thing and it'll pick what you want before it will, you know, go for what it wants. Which also means that you're technically better as a manual player. But this game functions pretty effectively, and it's really good at micromanaging the attack and defense modes, which are really important for battle. You will definitely learn that if you try to play this in manual. That is something that you will have to get used to quickly. But really, if you're trying to kind of get into the game, if you're looking for kind of an extended tutorial to help you understand all of these concepts, and all the little things that you can do to move your characters forward, because this is kind of one of those places where you're always looking for a way to make forward progress, and there's always a way to do it, but there's often like 20 or 30 different ways to go about it. You know, FFB games can kind of be the same way as well. But the guide, which is like the little missions that show them at the bottom of the home screen when you go to like the home screen with the wallpapers, right? There's going to be a little mission that you can either claim the rewards for or not. And I don't think these are connected to missions, because collecting missions doesn't seem to collect for these, and you can only do them in order because it seems like this is the only place in the game that you can collect them, on that home screen. and they will often kind of progress you through having to interact with all the different systems in the game a little bit at a time, as well as kind of pushing you to do different things and use different things, etc. As a part of that mission, you build up the Buster Sword. There's a lot of like expanded tutorial parts, but also it'll keep you moving around the game enough that you'll start to realize that there kind of always is a way forward. I really like Sled Fang. It is a double debuff attack, which is really cool. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it charges very quickly, so it allows you to really keep your party safe for quite a long time against singular boss battles, which are relatively common, stuff like Scorpion Sentinel here. It can also be, a really good way to kind of boost other people's damage, or kind of get a quick charge in for teaming up with somebody LB, because he can probably go off both with Aerith and then again with Barret when Barret's ready. Spunky. I also like his other LB. All of the characters are going to have 2 LBs, one that you can unlock. I'll show you that later when we look a little bit more at character growth. For Red 13, it's going to be Lunatic High, which is... So I'm playing as Aerith right now. You can see that her second ability is Saving Grace. That's with the Mithril Rod, which is the one that I was really going for first. I like her having Curaga, because she's such a good healer. But also Saving Grace is a very mild, very low heal. Probably not even 100, right? But it applies a temporary magic and physical barrier on the whole party. So this is... Saving Grace is basically the neutered version of Lunatic High. So he's either a great single target debuffer or a great AoE support. It's like Red 13 is pretty cool. In terms of his LBs, even though he's probably the character that I use the least, mainly because like the story barely reminded me that he was there. There were never any missions that he had to go on. The game always kind of forced me to pick him when I had a free slot, and since I wasn't using him, I didn't use him. I don't know. I've been building him up though. I do like him quite a bit. So let's get some more energy and look around at some more stuff, build some more stuff up. Because I still need a little bit more experience. So let's try to get through this a little bit more quickly. Also, it's worth noting that this game doesn't have a ton of AoE skills. So something like Curaga being on a weapon is really impactful. And that's also that's a good segue into this week, as the Lifeguard Fist, or whatever it is for Tifa this week, basically gives her a similar capability. If you needed another healer, for whatever reason, if you don't have something like, I forget what the wand that gives Curaga, like the fairy wand or something, if you don't have something like that, or I think it's like the prime number for Matt, one of the other healers, and you want Tifa to be your healer, that's a great option for you, because AoE heals are a very valuable thing to have as a weapon skill. But other than that, what you're typically going to find with weapon skills is just really boosted versions of other skills, maybe kind of like sub-limit break abilities. Because if it weren't for the regen, right, Curaga would be very similar to Aerith's primary LB. She also has a secondary LB, which now that I have the Curaga staff for her, I'm thinking about giving her Seal Evil, which is her damage skill, which is an AoE damage skill, as well, which is also quite cool. Like her and I think Beamblade from Cloud like would be a really cool AoE damage LB combo team. The other interesting thing about LBs in this game, other than like trying to get them to go off together and chaining them up, is that they happen kind of in this interrupt space, and they happen kind of instantaneously. They can break what other folks are doing, and that can be really interesting, especially for something like a heal. Like there are cases where you would not have priority on your heal with Curaga that Healing Wind would have, or Lunatic, whatever I just said it was for Red 13, would actually have priority. So healing limit breaks can be quite powerful as well. But I really like being able to come into a third round fight with Red 13 already having Sled Fang and just debuff the opponent's attack and magic before they can even start like assaulting you. Just kind of lengthening that opening window in which you are less vulnerable, and maybe being able to extend that throughout the fight. But now that I've built those characters up a little bit, I have some rewards to collect, such as 10 Barret shards for getting him to level 35. That's going to help me unlock stuff in his character. So while there are a number of places where the game will try to sell you character shards, it does seem like those are something that you are going to unlock naturally throughout the game. Yes, you can rush that process, but you can basically unlock a lot of these things for free. I don't think there's any reason that you would ever have to pay for them. But again, I haven't really seen the end game or what the end game is like, so that might be a reason why shards are more valuable than I realize right now. But typically, just advancing my character in normal ways, I'm progressing through this pretty naturally. Like, it feels like it's entirely on rails. It doesn't feel like something where I should have to buy more shards, or even though that would really be super helpful. I mean, it would be kind of cool, but you'd still be roadblocked in a bunch of other ways. Anyways, now that I've collected all the gifts that the game has for me, I think, is that all of them? I think so. Probably. I don't know, there's actually like 2 or 3 other places that they're hiding that aren't easily accessible, but let's continue. Let's build up Barret a bit. So first, it's gonna unlock a glitch. This screen was already unlocked. It was actually this side of the screen that wasn't unlocked, but that's where the unlock should have happened. As you see, I've already bought all over the screen. So I'm gonna maybe think a little bit more carefully before spending 20 of 25 of his shards on that one unlock. Maybe see if there's one that I like better, or well, it looks like actually I can't even buy all the free ones right now. So let me probably farm for some of these healing guys. And I think I'm gonna use the quest 7 for that. I'm not quite strong enough to do the quest 8 yet, I think. The recommended power level system is really, really helpful for figuring this out. And the recommended party is a really helpful system for aligning your party to kind of the specific weaknesses of the team that you're going up against, so you don't have to like research it. And as it turns out, enough of this is simple enough that is usually a pretty good option. They aren't always the best build. Sometimes you would want to tweak them a little bit. A weapon having particularly high stats might cause it to be included in a place where it just isn't necessary. Like, while Thunderstrike is good at taking out the weaker Balors, and they are weak to it, like it pretty much one-shots them. Like Cloud is just deleting Balors with Thunderstrike. It's only because that's his strongest weapon by far, but also, even if it weren't, it would be his second strongest weapon, that he's always going to have Thunderstrike, even though after this guy falls, this final big boss Baylor that's going to beat the crap out of us actually resists lightning. There's no point to have that. You know, so there are definitely scenarios where you're like, well, no, I think I want a different sub-weapon that I could use the ability on, because I think the ability is important, even though its stats aren't quite as good as this other one that you want me to equip. Like, there was a long time where I was having trouble getting it to equip Cloud the Buster Sword as a secondary weapon, because I really like how common, like, the cross-shape glyph is or the X glyph is, and also, like, how good Braver interacts with those glyph kind of interactions, doing bonus damage when it's removing glyph symbols. So it's a perfect glyph remover. But there was a while where there was like another sword that technically had higher stats, and it was just equipping that all the time, and it was like my barrier sword or whatever. But you'll find that each character already has like 10 or so weapons that each they give them a variety of different roles that they can fill. There's not necessarily overlap or a huge amount of overlap between characters, but you do have several characters within similar roles in that there's multiple stories playing out. So, you know, every team has its healer, whatever. You know, I guess except for Crisis Core, where Zack is everything. But let's see if we can get a little bit further on Barrett's stat stream. Now that we have gotten ourselves some more healing pieces. I'm not sure if I want to increase Grenade Bomb. Grenade Bomb is a strong skill, but I wasn't sure how I felt about Mind Blow at this point. Now I have the knowledge of Foresight. I know what Mind Blow does, and while it's nowhere near as powerful, the magic and physical defense decrease, which is similar to Tifa's initial limit break, while still having a much higher modifier than that limit break, this is still going to slap. It's still going to do some damage, not like the biggest, most impactful damaging limit burst, but the fact that you can get this in at the beginning of a limit burst chain as kind of an instant speed debuff that starts the whole limit burst chain, I think that's a really unique instance of, you know, because the stats are all timed in this kind of ATB system, but you're getting those two hits in guaranteed with those debuffs active, and I think that's pretty cool. Like, there's a lot going on with the limit burst and the way that interacts in combat that I think is interesting. But yeah, let's look at kind of how you unlock someone's secondary limit break. And it looks like I need rose gold is still the thing. So I've spent a lot of stamina with him in the party, given some of his shards over, given some gil over, used the limit break 10 times as well. But this looks like a really strong, or this looks like kind of a stronger version again of Saving Grace, which was a skill that I really wanted for Aerith, to give her both the ability to kind of support and heal. And I think it'll be cool for Red 13 too, but honestly for him, I think I do like Sled Fang better, for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned so far in this video. Oh, okay, that's way above my pay grade, that particular fight. Well, let's go with number 7 instead. We just did that one, it will be fine. Also, like the system, I have mixed feelings about it because I feel like it normalizes big numbers in terms of energy spends per fight, and kind of creates a new normal where you're not really getting 3 times the items, you're maybe getting 2 times the items, but what I mean is not that they're like gypping you, but it's just like it's designed to be done 3 at a time. So you're getting kind of a third or maybe more of the items that you probably should from a design perspective. I wish they'd hand out some of this stuff a little bit faster is what I'm saying. And I wish that, doing a 3 of was really set me up a lot better than it does. Which is to say that parts of this game are kind of grindy. And the grind is a bit more manual, especially compared to like what a War of the Visions player might be used to. And that's kind of because this game just doesn't have the layers and layers of polish and QOL that we kind of take for granted with War of the Visions, and with a lot of games that have just existed for long enough to be polished in all of those tiny little UI ways that we tend to take for granted but love so much. Because there's no background farming or any of that kind of stuff here, while it is pretty auto, in that I'm not doing a lot here myself, except for timing the limit breaks, essentially. It is still something that you kind of have to manually set up. And, I don't know, the energy use to number of... I don't know, my player level isn't very high. The energy cap raised really quickly at certain points. So, with level, I remember certain levels got me a whole extra 30. But doing the math, I would say that every level certainly hasn't, or I would have a whole lot more max energy. But the way that my current max stack of energy can be eaten through by a 3 of run quest pretty, or 3 or 4 pretty quickly, is kind of sad. And then the energy restores are only 50 energy, which is often as much or even less in some cases than I'm spending on these. This one, for instance, was 45. At the very least, even you're not only swapping between fights more often than you would with the background repeat system, you are also probably refilling your energy more than you might be used to as well. Because I don't even refill it fully. I just kind of give myself 50 and go at something. So I refill before every fight a lot of times. Yeah. Let's make Aerith thick. Give Aerith some of that thickness. But in order to do that, I'm gonna have to pick up some more resources, which means another fight. But yeah, so far I would say that I am really enjoying this, and I think that you could definitely play this in manual if you have more time, or particular boss fights are really fun in manual. I wouldn't play much or a lot of the grindier parts of the game like that necessarily. It'll get tiring, I guess, but it is an enjoyable process. It does feel pretty similar to Crisis Core in a lot of ways, and Crisis Core feels very similar to, what Remake felt like, what Final Fantasy Type 0, what a lot of the games of this kind of era have felt like. So that's really smooth and really good. So really dig the combat system. And just the overall kind of feeling of this reminds me a lot of Nier Reincarnation, though I didn't play very much of it. But stylistically, the combat system, a lot of the, just a lot of the principles at play here remind me of that. Maybe that's just a representative of a larger type of gacha. It's not that specific, but as this is another Square Enix joint, and that was as well, it is kind of also easy to see how the long-term investment in Near Reincarnation was an investment in creating a bit of a framework that Final Fantasy could be grafted onto, where, Nier is a somewhat popular part of the Square Enix package. It has been in recent years. It has a thriving fan base of its own, but it's nothing like the Final Fantasy, definitely Final Fantasy VII fan base. So it kind of makes sense that that was a dry run for kind of this, and I see some of the fingerprints of the experience that I had with that in this as well. And I see, elements of other games too. I see elements of Record Keeper. I see elements of the way that things were handled in FFBE. Because kind of the story elements of this progress a lot like FFBE did, in that you have that mix of, occasionally you have to wander around an area and do things and pick up chests, and there's hidden loot, and it feels like a console Final Fantasy experience more. But there's also this, which is kind of like the mobile-friendly version of the gameplay as well. And then there's long rambling story elements that you want to replay over and over again to see what all the dialogue trees work out to be, and to see how you can influence them. To see if, you can make yourself cry by giving Marlene a flower. There's all sorts of opportunities here to re-experience the most popular part, I think, of the whole Square Enix catalog, and they know it. And I think for a lot of people that's going to be really enticing. I also think that there's a lot of people who would probably really dig kind of the dress-up gacha aspect of this, in that, or also the kind of the virtue of the fact that they're going to have all the characters right off the bat to begin with. And again, I do think that new characters will be added to this, and I think that on principle we'll probably have to get them for free. Now, you'll probably have to get to a certain part in the story to unlock them, true. You'll have to, wait until you find them within the story of whichever one is being released. For instance, nobody ever joined Zach's party. But we might see, oh man, why are the only ones I can think of? Well, I guess Sid's in the next one. So we'll probably see characters like Sid, and probably still Yuffie and Vincent, and all of them within some of the next releases of Final Fantasy VII story updates as we get beyond Midgar. So those characters, I would imagine, will be released for free as soon as their part of the story comes out, and will probably be unlocked for you as a player as soon as you get to that part of the story, if not sooner. There's no precedent for this in this game yet, so who knows how they'll handle that. But it does seem like they would have to expand the roster as it goes, because it doesn't seem like this game could ever probably be a character gacha. It doesn't feel like it's given itself room to do that. So, while there's, I guess there's not a huge difference in that it's a weapon gacha, and the mechanics of the weapon gacha system kind of work about the same way, at the same time, there's people who are going to appreciate having the characters up front and then working on ways to customize them as kind of the added paid benefit. Although there are a lot of ways to shortcut this game that you can pay for as well. The game is happy to advertise those to you at every opportunity and when you're likely to come in need of them, but I just don't think any of them are really necessary to your experience. And really, if you just kind of grind it out just a little bit past that point, you'll be fine. This game has a good progression. Kind of like the progression that I noticed in Crisis Core as well. As you're working through all the side missions and stuff, it ramps you up really smoothly to the end game. And this has as well. So what I'm doing right now is, I believe, a crisis dungeon. And this is like a regular dungeon. You're running around kind of this set area. And every one of these things that I run into is going to be a boss fight. There are random encounters as well, and the levels of everything, random encounters to bosses, is going to increase with every boss that I take down. There's probably like 4 or 5 of them here, including the final boss, which, as I'm remembering recording this, I did some dumb things in my fight against, but I did win. This is my first time in a hard dungeon, so I'm pretty proud of myself. Maybe it was a little bold to record that experience, but I figured it was time. I could deal with it. And hey, we're dealing with this death machine pretty well, so maybe that bodes well for the whole experience. As you can see though, Lightning Strike is just taking out big chunks of all of these machines' health. Very effective. So now that I've opened up one of these paths for myself, I'm going to see what lies at the end of it. But also, I think I'm going to take the physical attack this time. I only have one mage, but I don't know, we all do cast spells on occasion. And Aerith, while she has a lot of things to do that aren't DPSing, so she can kind of afford for her magic to be low, I think, I still don't want to handicap her too much. So going into the next boss fight, getting a higher power level out of this one, Airbuster. Okay. Another 5 levels up. Oh, okay. I got interrupted, which probably means that I need to instead use that ATB to heal. Yep, there we go. A little bit of extra healing. Let's go ahead and put a beam blade in. Not the best timing for it, but my partners seem to be really behind. Alright, time to switch to Braver. Wait for the interrupt. Hopefully we can get these LBs in before the interrupt is over. But also, being able to save them for the next fight is not terrible. I'm not sure if the next fight's the boss, and I wasn't sure at that time either. But saving my LBs for them might be a good idea. Maybe one more, maybe like a random encounter could bring me up to the point where I can really mess with the boss. So I do some misreading here. I really shouldn't have gone with the magic attack up, because that just countered what I did previously, which is unfortunate. But I guess I got some magic back. Also, some unique items for the dungeons. These can only be used in the dungeons they are found in, so you'll use what you find or leave it by the time you leave. Supplements restore part of your max HP, and you may be noticing those negative percentages. That is HP that I can't restore without using a stimulant first. That stimulant allows me to restore it later. So I'm using those stimulants now just to kind of open up my max HP so that Aerith can heal us up in this next boss fight, because this is not the final boss fight. And people who can read the room, literally, kind of know where that boss fight's going to be. Okay, come on, Aerith. Here we go. Limit combo time. Also, I love Beam Blade so much. Like, that was always, I thought, the coolest skill that Cloud had, for sure. When I was a kid. Just the idea of magical chi spreading out from your sword in multiple directions and hitting everyone. Oh, so cool. The problem is that it's not as strong as his single target skill. So unless you're facing it's great against multiple enemies, but I would say the boss fights are more heavily stacked towards single big bosses than teams of bosses. It's good in those teams of bosses fights. It really is. Because often you'll maybe finish off one and hit their friends too. But just doesn't quite do the damage of his single target skill. And even when you do take out like somebody early with it and kind of get their friends too, you then go in a 2-on-1 fight and it becomes less effective the longer the fight goes on as well. But at the same time, as I was explaining before, there is so little. I just doubled down. I didn't even realize I did the first one. I didn't realize I was doing that until the second one. I've increased my magic quite a bit for very little physical. When I saw that the base reward was lightning potency up though, I thought with Cloud's gear, this is gonna make me just a one-hit machine. And I mean, I kinda am. I was hoping I'd be able to one-hit bosses and stuff. But I was thinking I'd be able to stack more lightning potency on the team. Because that's been a thing. Or that there would be a lightning potency up item. So what I should do right now is open my menu and use, you know, all of my supplements and heals. But also there's a lot of items that are going to give me beneficial buffs as I'm starting out. Like physical attack up, or certain defenses, a lot of buffs going into the fight. But nope, I'm just going to run straight into it like Leroy Jenkins instead of remembering to buff myself with the items they give me to help counteract the fact that this fight is going to be fucking tough. And, you know, increased attack rate here at the very beginning, especially as we're doing our LBs, would be great because we saved them all for the beginning of this fight. So let's stack that in there and just slash everybody to pieces. Also, single target fight, so like his other LB would have been better in this most hardest of final boss fights as well. And I think that's one of the things, like, I don't know, it does decent calls with Beam Blade over Cross Slash sometimes. This is one of the places where I think I would have rather had Cross Slash, even though there are at least a couple of fights in here where there are multiple difficult enemies that I would break that out on. I'd just rather have Cross Slash for this big guy right here. Because, like, I'm trying my best to take him out, but this Tank Buster just, it lives up to the name. Because I'm just, like, right under the difficulty that should be taking this. But, I thought he took out Cloud, which was, I figured I'd be screwed at that point because I'd invested so heavily in the lightning and physical. But it was, oof. Healing Wind interrupted the laser fingers, so it's going to have to do that now. And then I interrupted it again, I think. No, skills don't interrupt like that, but LBs would. So we're healed a bit, but here comes that Tank Buster 100%, and I'm just like, how is I got like 2 more hits until this thing's gone? Come on, I'm just counting down in my head like 3, 2, 1. Please don't be Cloud. Nope, it was Aerith. Okay. Is there another one coming? We gotta. Oh, it says cannon charged. Am I gonna die? Am I gonna die? I don't have my healer anymore. There's no way I survive this next hit. So I had to end the fight there. by the skin of my teeth. I really should have supplemented and stuff before going into that fight. And I think I'm going to redo that dungeon, but look at what you get for clearing a crisis dungeon. They really throw the rewards at you, and that makes these things feel really good. Now, they are events that you will need tickets for, and those do restore 3 out of 6 every week on Sunday. And I was sure to use up 4 of mine before this Sunday so that they could restore for this video. And I'm not sure what the rewards are for doing them like after this necessarily. Like, I'm not sure what you get for grinding them, but I guess I'll find that out when I play the Mako Reactor hard again and try to do an even better job of clearing it. But as you see, you know, getting the S Plus gets you a ton of rewards. It feels very, very satisfying. And with that, that's about all that I have for you today. Just kind of checking out where I am a couple days into the game. You know, what's open for me at player level 23, what kind of stuff I've gotten on my pools early on, how much I've been able to save beyond that. I'm excited for the idea of getting kind of free unlocks on Zack and the umbrella. I haven't even looked at what the umbrella does as a skill yet, or what Zack's swimsuit does for him yet. So maybe I don't even use it, but I don't have like a premium outfit for Zack yet. So he definitely, anything would be better than just the basic. So I am pretty excited for that. I might pull for Red 13, but I think I'm going to save through the summer event and just focus on getting the free stuff for Zack and have fun with that. But also, thank you so much for watching as I kind of show you a last few things. I just want to thank you, remind you to like and subscribe, and also to check that link in the description for an all-access pass into the rest of the Jackie Fox Media empire all over the internet. We have videos, podcasts, video games, all sorts of stuff. There's a Discord where you can come and hang out. There's also books. I have a new book out, actually. The paperback was supposed to get here this weekend. The hardback was supposed to get here this weekend. I was supposed to see my proof copy by now, but they really let me down on that. Weird, though. Like, where actually is my proof copy at this point? Oh well. Just writer problems. But if you would like a copy of my book after I see the proof copy, there'll even be hardbacks available in the very near future. So just I'd appreciate it, you know, like this is what pays the bills. I appreciate you. If you aren't necessarily interested in a book, but you would like to help me pay the bills, you do appreciate me taking a deep look into this. And I don't know what people need help with, because all of this is kind of alien to me at this point. Like, give me some questions in the comments, give me some ideas of like what I could help you with. But you know, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around this game for the most part. And again, I kind of want to see what the end game's like and where we're headed to really pass a lot of judgment on it. But I do think that it definitely has a different style and a different flavor, and just I think that this hits both some of the War of the Visions people and some people outside of that, and it's a fun experience. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this, and this may even become the more mainstream game than War of the Visions. I don't think that means bad things for War of the Visions. I just, you know, because I think that War of the Visions has a very strong and loyal niche even within the Final Fantasy universe. Well, there's always going to be people coming in for Final Fantasy VII and projects like this. The people who like Final Fantasy Tactics don't get any fucking respect. Look, after the first console game, every Final Fantasy Tactics after that had Game Boy syndrome. So like, and now the latest Final Fantasy Tactics installment doesn't even call itself Final Fantasy Tactics, and it's a mobile gacha. So I'm just saying, this is the most up-to-date version of the thing that they enjoy. I think that makes a certain core demographic within the wotv audience like very loyal, but they're not going to jump ship for this. But this is a cool game in its own right, and maybe you should check it out if you are a fan of Final Fantasy VII, or anything like that. So, see you in the next one.